Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Sachin Karnik. Today is the 4th of February, 2025. We are on week number 5 of year number 2 of the Personal Transformation Program. We are continuing our journey further into energy conservation. This is our theme during this current series. It is an extraordinary concept that first needs to be understood, which is our goal here, is to understand together what this is all about as we have been examining it, and then its application as far as the homework assignments are concerned, and just day-to-day application in many ways. So today we're going to be looking at the family and relationship dimension in terms of energy balance, in terms of energy conservation. If you remember this diagram from before, this core energy diagram, that family relationships is one of these 12 dimensions. We all have families in some form or other, and we always use time and energy within them, obviously. So we are in relationship with our intimate partners, if you have an intimate partner, with loved ones, with children, with grandchildren, with other relatives. There's a whole structure of family relationship. Now, in that structure, to maintain the relationship, energy and time are both required. So let's talk about that before we get into these points, because there's a whole lot of slides here. But energy and time are both required. What does that mean? Why is that the case? No relationship of any kind can even exist without the utilization of certain amount of personal energy within the framework of time. And along with that, there is the connection with another person's energetic structure. When we are in a relationship of any kind, at any level, there is also an energetic relationship, meaning an energy bond, an energy transmission, energy interaction, energy that is exchanged, energy exchange. All of that is going on. Now, having understood that basic idea, how does conservation of energy fit into this? Again, it has to do with realizing that once dormant energy has become available, once it has become available in the psychological availability matrix, then we are able to utilize it, if we want, in the context of a relationship, within various relationships. We can utilize it, right? So when we utilize time and energy that is available, because time is available as it is, we're within the framework of time, energy becomes available, then we decide how much to utilize. And that's where the conservation concept comes into the picture. For example, one is, let's say, in a very loving relationship with a son or a daughter, or you are a son or a daughter of parents. There is always a boundary of how much time, how much energy, how much effort is to be spent in that relationship. All too often, in human civilization, our internal attachments are such that energy is just being funneled out in the relationship. Energy is being even damaged. It's our internal raw wealth, which we have to be able to conserve because it's a limited amount at any given time. So if we just keep pulling it out through entangled attachments and similar concepts that we've talked about before, then it'll be very difficult to conserve the right amount of energy that has already been available, that has been activated in terms of its availability. This is a big idea. This is a very powerful notion because our attachment structures are such that our mind and our emotions and our feelings, our memories, they get so rapidly drawn into another person's energy matrix. And we get lost in that, or they get lost in us. Now, is it possible for that not to happen? Yes, that is the hypothesis. That is the contention here. That it's not necessary to be lost energetically in another person's life. Even though there can be intimacy, closeness, harmony, balance, all those beautiful things are there. But to be lost in somebody else's vortex is to be lost yourself. What an idea that is. That doesn't mean we don't love the person. On the contrary, to not be lost and harmfully trapped in another individual's, another family member's energy vortex is love. We tend to look at it just the opposite way. I love the person so much, I just want to do everything. Okay, do everything. Why not? But I'm also lost. I cannot, I'm thinking about you so much. Even that's not an issue. That's not a problem. But when we are trapped in another person's mental framework, and they are trapped in our framework, this is what we generally call a very close bond. And that's not a healthy bond. That's a toxic relationship, which is a commonly known expression. I'm in a toxic relationship with this person, that person, with my husband, with boyfriend, with this. It goes on. This is so often used because of this reason. This toxicity comes about due to the intrapsychic harmful binding within another person's psychosomatic matrix. And when we don't do that, when we don't get bound, tremendous amount of energy is conserved. It's amazing. It's extraordinary to realize this. Even to talk about it is something, what a blessing for me, for Sachin. But to actually understand it is the next level. And then to understand it clearly is another level. And then beyond that level is realizing it. Applying and realizing, not because Sachin is telling you what is truth. It will be your discovery. It will be your discovery that I have all kinds of activated energy. There is a certain amount that is used in the relationship in the best possible way. The remainder of it is to be left alone. And leaving the remainder of that alone is energy conservation. It's energy that has been activated that comes right back to you, and it actually replenishes oneself, and it provides even a better quality relationship overall because of the replenishment from within. I hope that makes sense. Please do ask me about it later if you have some questions. I know it's a bit tricky, but another way, simpler way to perhaps put all of this is that, first of all, life is nothing but relationship. Nobody lives in isolation. We cannot live in isolation. But we also have to decide those 6 points with regards to relationship. That is quality, quantity, dimension, direction. Quality, quantity, direction, dimension, depth, and structure. Hopefully you've written those 6 down. This is true in terms of the overall relationship structure with regards to the 5, TEMDE, thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy. And we're going to talk more about this throughout this year and into the subsequent years when we get into self-mastery. We're really going to dive into this further. But this year we're going to dive into it also to some extent. Now, see how this is applied in relationship. What is the quality of my relationship with all those that I'm connected with? What is the quality? I have to ask myself. People do journaling and stuff like that. You can ask yourself. You don't need to go far. Ask yourself. Maybe bounce it off with a friend. That's okay. You can write it out also. No problem. Talk it out. What is the quality of the relationship? What is the quantity of time, energy, effort that is being placed in that relationship? It could be a relationship even with a pet, with a bird, with a fish, with a husband, with a wife, with a LGBTQ. It could be whatever, with a parent, with a grandparent, with coworkers, etc. There's always a relationship, but we're talking about family, and immediate family, particularly extended family in a more general sense. What is the quality of the relationship? What is the quantity of time, energy, effort being placed? Quality, quantity, direction. Direction means in which direction is this relationship going? Sometimes the relationship begins to take a downward turn. Arguments begin to happen, conflicts begin to happen, things like that. It begins to deteriorate. See, that is direction very beautifully. That word is beautifully used in a positive way and negative way. So we want to make life very positive. Positive is the key there. And that is the possibility of direction. So quality, quantity, direction. Now these other three are fascinating. Dimension. What is the dimension? Now, what does that mean actually? What is the dimension of a relationship? It's a little longer explanation, maybe some other time, but briefly I can simply say this right for now, that the relationship is a dimensional one, meaning that it exists within the overall life circumstances of both or more individuals. And so it is an intersection together in terms of stage of life, in terms of the time, place, circumstance. There's quite a bit involved in that. That is called the dimension of a relationship. We don't think about this usually. We don't even use that word. What is the dimension of my relationship? Right? So I, again, leave that alone for the time being. It's a little bit complex, a little bit more intricate explanation. Leave that alone. Then there's a depth of relationship. How deep is the current relationship and how deep do I want it to go? What does that mean? What is depth? That means that there is greater closeness. There's more coming together of each other's thinking, feeling, emotions, and this is where the trouble can begin in many cases. This is where a lot of energy can be lost if the depth is of such kind where one is draining energy. Now, is it possible to have depth without the drain of energy and time? Yes, definitely. There can be a tremendous, great amount of depth in a relationship. Definitely there can be. Why not? Because there is love, there is sensitivity, care, but there's always a practical boundary. But the depth is the intimacy, it's the care and affection, and that is the depth. It's not just getting depth. It can be of this more harmful, negative type, getting lost into the vortex of another person's mind. In the therapeutic world, we call that transference and countertransference. Therapists get lost inside the client's problems. The client, and then they get stuck with each other. That can happen. If that begins to happen, the therapist has to transfer the case, close the case. It's called transference and countertransference. In family relationships, it's called enmeshment, to be enmeshed, particularly in a very harmful way. They cannot live with each other, cannot live without each other. When I used to do crisis work many years back, I used to do home visits all throughout this state in Delaware. I was part of the team, the crisis response team, for almost 10 years. Throughout the whole state, in fact. I was also a supervisor at one point, 2 points, in fact. And what do we see? We see families who are, when there's a difficult situation going on, there's all kinds of trouble there, but there's this harmful exchange of energy, shouting at each other, just family members shout. They cannot communicate with any affection. They're just shouting. I've seen this many times. Again, I don't want to describe that too much. It's a different tangent. You see, so the depth of a relationship definitely can open up great joy if the depth or when the depth is such where there is the right quality, quantity, direction, etc. of energy linkage. The TEMDE, the energy aspect of the E is the energy. When the energy is linked together, the right amount, not all of it, but the right amount is linked together, there is love. There is harmony. There is so much beauty in the relationship. There is sharing and care. Even in a great friendship, when two people are very close together in a friendship, the same thing happens. But one has to see the whole picture. How far to go? Where's the boundary? Because there are those throughout human civilization who are interested in damaging somebody else's relationship. They get stimulation from doing that. And there's many people, unfortunately, doing that. They're unhappy themselves, like that old expression, misery loves company. If they see they're miserable, so now they want to see somebody else miserable. And these people are, unfortunately, that's there. And if you detect it, just navigate through that thing. Don't get stuck with that. This happens in all kinds of family structures. Things are going well, but there's someone somewhere, even some tangential person who sees the family is doing well, and now they are going to stick their nose in somehow to damage the whole thing. It can happen. It happens all the time. There's nothing new in that. That is why the solidification of energy conservation in the relationship structure, once a couple, once a family, once the immediate family group starts doing that, nobody can disturb them. Nobody can touch them. Nobody can damage them. No situation can even damage them. I mean, situations happen in life, but they are so solidly linked in a way that energy is being constantly conserved, that linkage is very, very solid, and it is dynamic. It is non-conflictual, along with the diversity that comes along with life's experiences. That is a linkage that is where love is flowing through the linkage, not distortion, disturbance, conflict, or some kind of contaminated energy is flowing through the linkage. Really hope, this is very, very fascinating even to think about, but to actually live it, my God, you can have heaven in the home only. People are looking for heaven maybe, after leaving the body and going into heaven. Yeah, all those things may be there. Why not? What about heaven on earth? What about heaven in the home? This is the point here of the personal transformation program. We are trying to create a heavenly life here through this entire process. And this is the hypothesis and the theory, to some extent, that has been built after considerable research for 20, 25, 30 years, that this is possible. But how many people have taken the journey? Very few. Those of us who have started this journey, that's a real blessing for all of us, including me, especially me. It's a great blessing because we do not recognize what is involved in this. And if we are beginning to recognize it, then share it. To live it and share it. Share this knowledge. Don't keep it to yourself only. Not because of Sachin. Sachin is a non-factor. It has nothing to do with this particular person. It is a transmission and it's a synthesis of so many years and years of ideas that have come together that are being shared. One has to apply them to see, is it true? It's the art of being free, as I've mentioned before. It's the art of energy balance. It is the art of living developing and then maintaining, sustaining the best quality relationships. Of course, people have problems. Of course, they have difficulties. Do not internalize anybody else's difficulty. That's another point I want to mention here. This is a homework assignment this week. Where and in what situations am I internalizing the problems of others? Internalizing the problems of others doesn't solve their problem. It doesn't solve their problem. It doesn't solve one's own problem. It doesn't do any of that. Internalization causes energy fragmentation. You can write this down, right? If you're taking notes, you can write this down. Internalization of problems causes personal energy fragmentation. It doesn't solve anything. In fact, it creates many, many, many more difficulties for oneself and for others. So rather than internalizing, recognize what is going on. And the difficulty that is there, have a response of compassion, love, affection, right action, support. Have that response without bringing the disturbance inside, bringing the agitation, somebody else's agitation inside oneself. Don't bring it inside. And by not bringing it inside, we are allowing non-egotistical love to flow towards the other person. We are allowing for that to happen. It is a state of interaction where there are the most extraordinary qualities of tolerance, beauty, forgiveness, care, sensitivity, and with that, great inner freedom. How fantastic. This is what we are aiming for. That is personal excellence at the top of the whole journey, 7-year journey. But we may get there before. We might get there in a few days even. It's not a question of 7 years. It's realization. It's not, I just have laid it out that way, which is all right. We continue that. And that is the intrinsic beauty. You've heard Sachin say this before. I don't like to use I and me. These words are really toxic words, pronouns. But Sachin has said many, many times, or this individual has said many, many times, discover one's own luminosity. It's a natural, independent luminosity. And if you believe in God, dependent on God only. That's it. Nobody else. And because of that, all are interconnected in that same light. Then there's no issue with anybody. There cannot be getting stuck with anybody. And in fact, on the contrary, one can see clearly the nature of harmful binding throughout the world. It can be seen not as an egotistical judgment, but as pure perception only. All right, so I think that's good enough for now. I know I started a little late here. I want to show you the quantum quality. Give me just a moment here. Just a moment here. Okay, right. So week number 5, quantum quality, was called integration. So all that simply means is bringing together in harmony, in a cohesive whole, so many pieces that may not be in that whole. That's what that simply means. That so there's growth, there's fulfillment. These are the qualities. When integrated areas of life support each other, leading to personal growth. Integration minimizes stress, confusion. Right? We know this already, but we want to do this week. You already have the card. Hopefully you have that. And I still have to pull that document together for you that has all of the 52 principles. This is the principle of integration. And it's a fantastic, beautiful way of living. Our communication is better. Our time management is better. Everything falls into place when we are integrated. So that's the basic quality. There's a lot of information in here about that, which is pretty straightforward. The vitamin M envelope, of course, referring to money to be used as a vitamin. It's a huge idea, very powerful idea, not easy to understand. We're going to talk more about that later, but we have talked about it to some extent, that just as a vitamin energizes all the reactions in the body, money can be used that way, using minimal amounts for maximum benefit and joy. That's the basic idea. Standing homework assignment, write some paragraphs if you're doing so. How am I conserving my personal energy this week? Just 2 homework assignments. Where am I draining my personal power in relationships? Very simple question. And why am I doing that? What's the reason for that? Sometimes it happens from past issues, and we start getting stuck in that also. Things that don't have any significance right now. Right? So all that comes into the picture. Let's do our closing song, then we'll get to some Q&A.